Hi, thanks for joining me. In this video session, I'd like to share my thoughts and findings on attaching a 360 camera to a drone to get aerial footage. So let's just quickly show you the gear and then I'll move on to my findings. Those of you that are drone pilots may well recognise a Dji Mavic Pro. Super aircraft, very stable. This one has a 3D printed mount attached to the base. More of that later. Suffice to say, it has a 1/4-20 screw attachment for the camera, and it's made to fit a Mavic Pro. The cameras Insta360 1x2, bit smaller than a phone. Waterproof, but I don't want to be finding any of that out at the moment. And an Insta360 1R. This has the 4K mod fitted at present, but I also have the twin lens 360 mod, and this gives me a few configurations for aerial photography. So let's get started. The drone is powerful enough to carry each of the cameras, stable enough, but there's still an element of jello when viewing the 4K mod footage. When it's in the 360 mod, the twin lenses of the 1R and the 1x2, the stabilization is fantastic, so it's passable, but it creates massive files, so no long flight times. I tend to film when using the 360 mods or the 360 1x2 camera. I tend to film using the interval mode. So it's taken a snapshot at a predetermined time, and I've found 5 or 10 seconds is a good time frame. Why do I prefer the interval mode rather than just taking a particular snapshot? Well, when the drone is high above, there's no signal for the cameras, so I can't start and stop any operation. So as you might guess, a hand launch, as you may well see in many of my videos, I hand launch the drone and camera, but I've already started the camera either in video mode or interval mode. So it's taken footage destined for the cutting room floor before takeoff. I can live with that. It's always worth checking when you start the camera and then start the drone. It's always worth checking before takeoff that the camera is doing what you expect it to be doing. So a quick look at your phone, which you use to control the camera, and see that either the video is rolling or the interval mode happening. And if it is, use auto takeoff in the DJI Go 4 app. Hold the drone at arm's length and off you go. Majority of my footage is just a straight up and down type of shot. Now I'm stretching the truth there slightly. When flying drones, one of the worst places to be for the drone is vertically above you. That's one of the poorest signals you'll get, especially if you're flying a Wi-Fi drone, but this Mavic is a bit more sophisticated than that, and the OcuSync is super for communication between the controller and the drone. But back to flying above, I find looking directly up I would tend to lose balance. So my first action after a hand launch is to fly the drone forward slightly, then up, so that I can keep the drone in line of sight without straining looking vertically overhead. So when I say I just send the drone up, maybe rotate it and then bring it back down, that's the majority of my landmark footage. If the flight needs a forward motion, then so be it. I'll fly towards the coastline the seashore or the landmark, as in some of my viaduct shots and bridges, and lately rivers. So all line of sight, in my case, very important. This Mavic Pro was bought as damaged. The gimbal and camera seem to be damaged, and it's not transmitting any video signal back to the app on the controller and my tablet that I use. So around the edge of the DJI 4 screen, if you fly DJI drones, you'll be familiar with all the icons telling you GPS and camera settings, which is relevant in my case. But there's also the fantastic feature of the map and the compass. So I always fly line of sight because I haven't got the camera on the drone to look down and around. The camera that I fit to the drone, the 360 camera, isn't sending a signal back that I can use for location. It's just storing it on the SD card so I can compile videos at the end of each flight. So there's a little tip in there: don't be put off a drone that has a damaged part. Work around it, buy a bargain, and achieve something you may not be able to afford any other way. In this case, this budget Mavic Pro suits my pocket ideally to carry my 360 cameras. Findings of using the 360 cameras with a drone: the mounting bracket that came, there was 2 of them with the Mavic Pro in the bundle with a damaged drone, were 3D printed, and I thought super. But the strength of the 3D printing is very poor, so the little tab that mounts the frame to the Mavic Pro broke without hardly any force at all during the first days of use. So a tie wrap and one of these which you can fasten, unfasten, refasten over and over, a suitable wide tie wrap does the trick, replacing this tab. So that's the front of the mount sorted. The 1/4-20, it's not invulnerable. I've had the 2 locking nuts tight together, and while trying to untighten one from the other, the whole of the 1/4-20 thread sheared. So don't put your house on it, don't bet your mortgage, keep an eye on it, use common sense, no brute force. We're just talking about nipping it up. Certainly tight enough to stop a camera rotating, because they can rotate and fall off. Well, that's a story for another day. So that's the front mount of the 3D print. The rear mount, super. It goes into two slots at the back of the Mavic Pro. So I'd recommend that type of mount. Just take care and don't apply too much force. Protect your camera. You could of course fit an external lanyard, which I keep thinking about, but I haven't up to now. Anyway, so that's the camera mount. I have mounted on a Heath Robinson device the 1X2. I have mounted it horizontal off the front of the Mavic with just a few adaptations to the mount. I'll leave that for you to invent and at your risk. So that's mounting it horizontal. But since I got my hands on the 360 1R, it has a GoPro style mount which can flip at 90 degrees, so I can have the camera horizontal, vertical, the 360 lens forward and back, or the 4K mod similarly vertical or horizontal, and that of course will allow me to look down on objects. I mentioned the jello. That can be fixed in post-production depending on your editing software, but it's a shame that the stabilization within the camera isn't as good as with the 360 mod. So something Insta360 may need to address in future updates, or maybe they have and it just hasn't come onto my radar yet. I've seen all sorts of rubber mounts for cameras. I've seen long mounts, floppy mounts, and believe me, that's not the way. The pendulum action is going to work against you, and it's all going to come to grief. So you want a solid mount and you want in-camera stabilization. That's my top recommendations. The hand takeoff, it's easy to achieve, especially with the Mavic series. The hand retrieval, that's possible as well. Just recently I've landed over and over in long grass and cut in the motors immediately, but it still does a strimmer job as the props to slow down, so be aware of that. And what you have to do is, when the drone and camera have landed, you need to get your phone out or tablet, wherever you're controlling the camera with. Stop the footage, and that way it'll be saved to the SD card. All that's left when you're at home editing is to chop off the unwanted bit at the beginning before the launch, and at the end after the launch. And like me, you want to get your money's worth out of these cameras, so film in yourself hand launching and whatever retrieval method you use with another video camera on a mini tripod at a distance will enhance the video production, and it helps the viewer get a complete picture of how you achieved it. Should you wish to share, as I do, I don't mind sharing knowledge, as I'm even doing now. I like to see that launch and retrieval. It sort of brings closure to a video when you can see that the drone and camera are back safe. So I hope my little insight and findings into utilising a drone to carry your Insta360 cameras aloft for nice outdoor, landmark or coastal footage. I hope it's been useful, and maybe pop along to my channel and see some of the latest stuff I've been producing. So thanks for joining me. See you soon. Bye.